I'll talk about mergers and acquisition. So when we analyze the proposed merger, we have to look at many things. The most important is to find out whether the merger would make value, whether it would make sense. Sense in the terms of financials as well as sense in the sense of business. Now, which company is the target and which company is the acquirer, and how the value is created are questions that we always ask in a merger. And what are the takeover defense of the target company that she could take to actually avoid a merger? So there are a lot of things here that we'll look at. So the term merger and acquisition generally refers to two business combining in some manner. Many companies use M&A activities as a way to achieve growth, while others use to diversify the business. In cases, the M&A activities are one of the most controversial topics, wherein there is always complexities associated with the legal, tax, synergy issue. Casual reading of the headline indicates that merger and acquisition friendly or hostile, but almost always someone is left unhappy. Usually mergers that are removed or workers, managers that are removed or workers that are laid off. So many controversies here. There are many reports that also say that the merger and acquisition are many times not as successful. So although M&A is often a generic term that refers to any business combination, we can differentiate between merger and acquisition. An acquisition refers to a company buying only a part of the other company. A typical acquisition transaction may involve the purchase of assets or distinct business segment from another company. If the acquirer absorbs the entire target company, the transaction is called as merger. Once a merger is completed, only company one will remain, the other cease to exist. When a transaction is called a merger or an acquisition, the initiator of the venture is referred to as bidder or acquirer, while the opposite side of the transaction is known as target. So we'll now classify the merger and acquisition transaction based on activities, integration and business lines. So there are variety of ways to classify merger and acquisition activities, and the companies physically come together, that is they form integration, and their business line are generally related to one another. So there are few forms of integration. The first is statutory merger, then the subsidiary merger. So statutory merger, the acquiring company acquires all of the target's assets and liabilities. As a result, the target company ceases to exist. Note that in a statutory merger, the target company is usually smaller than the purchaser, but this is not always the case. In a subsidiary merger, the target company becomes a subsidiary of the purchaser. The subsidiary merger typically occurs when target has a well-known brand. For example, Procter and Gamble buying Gillette. So the well-known brand is what the acquirer wants to retain. Then there are types of merger. Looking at three types here: the horizontal, the vertical, and conglomerate. In a horizontal merger, two business operates in the same or similar industries, or may be often competitors. So if both were to merge, then they would cease to exist as different entities, so their business is same. In a vertical merger, the acquired company seeks up and down the product supply chain. For example, an ice company can acquire a restaurant. This is an example of forward integration, where acquirer is moving up the supply chain toward the ultimate consumer. If the same ice cream manufacturer purchases a farm so that it can supply its milk and cream for its product, that is called backward integration, because company is moving down the supply chain toward the raw material input. So in the backward they move toward input raw material, in the forward they move toward their consumer. Then we have conglomerate merger, where the two companies operate in completely separate industries, and there are very less of these, and because of the synergies issue, if they are very much different. So a food company cannot go into oil exploration and so on, so the benefits are quite less. Now let's look at some of the motivations behind the merger and acquisition activity. So we cite a variety of reasons for merger and activities and the explanation of the economic case. In this place, the synergies are a source of value addition, and that's what make the heart and soul of the valuation. So the synergy, which are the most common motivation for a merger, is the idea that it will create a combined company which is worth more than the two companies operating separately. Usually synergy results from either reducing cost or increasing revenue. Cost synergies are behind the pure horizontal merger. On the surface, who can argue with the economics of scale? This is one basic principle of microeconomics. Imagine scenarios where two firms plan to combine even though there is no expected increase in sales. If the new entity can reduce the combined cost via elimination of duplicate function, the average cost will decrease by spread the now lower cost over the same number of units. Of course, it is easier said than done to eliminate duplicate function and integrate the remaining business function. Revenue synergies is created by cross-selling product, increasing market share, or raising price to take advantage of reduced competition. Achieve more rapid growth. External growth via M&A activities is usually much faster way for managers to increase revenue by adding investments internally. Organic growth. Growth through M&A is especially common in mature companies where organic growth are limited. In addition, it is typically very less risky to generate growth by acquiring resources through a merger with another rather than developing them internally. Increased market power. When a horizontal merger occurs in industry with a few competitors, the new combined company will typically come away with increased market share and greater ability to influence market price. Vertical merger may also increase the market power by reducing dependency of outside supplier. So for example, if a company acquires a key supplier of raw material, it can guarantee that materials will be available for its own production process and potentially lock out competition firms who may rely on the raw material. By controlling critical supply input, the firm can influence industry output and market price. Regulators closely scrutinize both horizontal and vertical merger to make sure company does not gain too much power, which would potentially harm the consumers. So we use the HH index to measure the market power resulting for a merger, which is the last topic of this chapter. Getting access to unique capabilities. If a company is lacking specific capability or resource like research and development or intellectual capital, it can either try to develop it internally or seek to acquire something that already exists. M&A activities can be cost effective way to acquire proven capabilities or resources. Diversification. Managers may cite the need to diversify the firm's cash flow as grounds for merger. This makes no sense for shareholders but may be a rational for managers. It is much easier and cheaper for a shareholder to diversify simply by investing in shares of unrelated company themselves rather than company going through the long expensive process of acquiring other things. So in research we have revealed that conglomerate trade at a discount relative to the sum of the individual companies. Now bootstrapping EPS. Another motivation for merger is bootstrapping effect on earning per share that sometimes results from a stock deal. And bootstrapping is nothing there but the EPS increase, and again that comes out with many assumptions. Tax benefits and profit benefits for merger. So consider two companies where one has large amount of tax income and another has accumulated large tax carry forward. Sorry. For merging with the company, the tax losses, the acquirer can use the losses to lower its tax liability. Regulators typically do not approve mergers that are undertaken purely for tax reasons, but with many potential motivation to enter into a merger, provide that tax reasons are the key factor is difficult. And now we move to personal benefits for merger. Studies concerning executive compensation find that there is high correlation between size of a company and how manager is paid. This means that there is a strong financial incentive for manager to maximize size of the firm rather than shareholder value. In addition, being part of an executive team for a larger company implies greater power and prestige and is probably good for managerial egos. Unlocking hidden values. When a company has struggled for an extended period of time, an acquirer may believe that it can pay a lower price to buy a company and unlock hidden values by improving management, adding resources, improving organization structure. In some cases, a merger may occur because acquirer believe it is purchasing assets for less than the replacement cost. For example, a manufacturing company may be acquire existing production process for less than it would cost develop on its own. Adding internal business goals. So since the 1990s, internal M&A deals have become an important way for multinational company to achieve cross-border business. Many of these goals reflect the same motivation behind domestic merger, such as extending global power or gaining access to unique capabilities. However, there are a number of factors driving international M&A. So international business goals have again 5 subpoints: taking advantage of market inefficiency, working around disadvantaged government policies, use technology in a new market, product differentiation, provide support to existing multinational clients. The next topic is understand how the EPS bootstrapping work. So bootstrapping is a way of packaging the combined earning from company after the merger so that the merger generates an increase in earning per share of the acquirer. Although there is no economic gains that have been achieved, but this bootstrapping is the effect on the increased earning per share. The bootstrapping occurs when high PE, generally a firm with high growth, acquires a low PE firm, generally a growth with low prospectus, in a stock transaction. Post-merger, the earnings of the combined firm are simply the sum of the earnings prior to merger. However, by purchasing a firm with lower PE, acquirer is essentially exchanging high-priced firm with a low PE. The acquiring firm is generally exchanging higher price shares for lower price. As a result, the number of shares outstanding of the acquirer increases, but the ratio is less than 1 for 1. When we compute the EPS of the combined firm, the numerator is equal to the sum of combined firm. The denominator total is less than the sum of the combined firm. The result is higher EPS, even when there are no synergies. So the whole idea here was that if you are a high growing company, and if you supply a low growing company, it would be assumed that the company would grow very fast. So the next topic that we'll look at is industry life cycle, method of payment and defense mechanism.